Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu wa sallama ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. When to begin fasting? This is an easy problem to solve for Muslims who are in Muslim lands, because there is a central authority, the government, that often enforces the beginning and end of Ramadan on all of its citizens. The question is decided by a central authority. Muslims living in non-Muslim lands, however, have no central authority. And so when the Ramadan begins and when Ramadan ends, there is confusion. The goal of this lesson is to answer the question, when should I begin fasting in the light of this confusion? In order to understand the answer to this question, we first need to understand a little bit about Islamic months and how they are determined, how the beginning and end of Islamic months is determined. So if we take the month of Sha'ban, which is the month that comes before Ramadan, in the Islamic calendar, the night comes before the day. So the first of Sha'ban begins with the first night of Sha'ban. And this is followed by the first day of Sha'ban. Then, if we fast forward to the 28th night of Sha'ban, the night of the 28th, this will be followed by the 28th day of Sha'ban, which will be followed by the 29th night of Sha'ban, which will be followed by the 28th day of Sha'ban, which will be followed by a night. And this night may be of Sha'ban, or it may be of the next month. It may be of Ramadan. The Islamic month, the lunar month, has either 29 or 30 days. So every month must have at least 29 days. And after 29 days are completed, there will be a night. And this night will either be the 30th night of the current month or the first night of the next month. Which of these two it is depends on whether the moon is sighted. So on this night that follows the 28th day, Muslims look for the moon. They look for the moon. And if the moon is sighted, that means that this is the first night of Ramadan, and it will be followed by the first day of Ramadan. In other words, the next day will be the first day of fasting. But if they look for the moon on this night that comes after the 29th day and it's not sighted, then the month of Sha'ban will continue. And this will be the 30th night of Sha'ban, followed by the 30th day of Sha'ban. And then the next day will automatically be Ramadan. The next night, will automatically be the first night of Ramadan. And the next day will be the first day of Ramadan without having sighted the moon. So the important event is whether or not the moon is sighted on the night that follows the 28th day of Sha'ban. Is the moon sighted or is it not sighted? If the moon is sighted, then this night will be the first night of Ramadan. If the moon is not sighted, then this night will be the 30th night of Ramadan. So there's confusion every year because on this night, when people all over the world go out to look for the moon, there will be different sighting reports from different areas of the globe. And so there's confusion. Should I follow the global sighting? Meaning, should I follow the first sighting anywhere in the world and assume that that is the first day of Ramadan for me, wherever I may be? Or should I follow a regional sighting? Should I follow the sighting of my region and ignore reports from all over the world? Or should I follow calculations? Now we have advanced in our calculations of the phases of the moon and exactly when the moon is born, and we have scientific calculations as well as observatory reports. We can do this to a very high degree. Should I just rely on calculations? Or should I follow the sighting in Saudi Arabia, which is the site of the holy cities of Mecca and Medina? What should I do? What should I do? We'll see in this course that following the global sighting is a strong position in Islamic scholarship. We'll see that following the regional sighting is also a strong position in Islamic scholarship. We'll see, surprisingly to many, that calculations are also a strong position in Islamic scholarship. And we won't be examining a sighting in a particular location, because whether a sighting happens in Saudi Arabia or anywhere else, the particular place in which the sighting happens is not of consequence. Because as Imam al-Shafi'i used to say, al-biqa'u la ta'asimu ahlaha, which means that locations do not render the people of that location inerrant. So whether there's a sighting in Saudi Arabia or anywhere else, there's no intrinsic merit in a particular location as far as the sighting is concerned. But what we look for instead is either the first global sighting or the regional sighting or calculations. And so in this lesson, we will examine each one of these scholarly positions in turn. We'll first examine what is meant by global sighting and how we could follow this position for our own personal practice. We'll examine what is meant by regional sighting and how we could follow this position for our own personal practice. Then we'll examine what is meant by calculations and how we could follow this position for our personal practice. And finally, we'll summarize by studying the practical upshot of everything. Given the scholarly difference of opinion, what should I do? So let's examine each one of the three positions in turn. But before we begin, we want to emphasize that there is an assumption. The assumption on which this lesson proceeds is that all four schools of sacred law are upon guidance. The school of Imam Abu Hanifa is upon guidance. The positions of the Hanafi school are strong positions in Islamic scholarship. The school of Imam Malik is upon guidance. The positions of the Maliki school are strong positions in Islamic scholarship. And the same is said of the Shafi'i school, and the same is said of the Hanbali school. And because we're making this assumption, when we investigate the various positions, we will not be examining the proofs of each position. Because the proofs have already been examined by the scholars, and there are qualified scholars who have deemed each one of these to be strong and sound positions. Rather, what we will be focusing on is on the practical implementation of each of these positions. So let's begin our study of these positions.